Welcome to round 2 of side dishes. I am so excited about the recipe that I'm going to share with you this week. If you're a food nut like I am, you spend a lot of time walking around grocery stores, browsing farmers markets, looking for new ingredients. But every once in a while, I'll admit, I run across something that makes me go, now what in the heck am I supposed to do with that? And the vegetable that's featured in this week's recipe is one of those items. I grew up in southeast Missouri. Every year my parents had a garden. They grew yellow squash, they grew zucchini. When it came to spaghetti squash, which is this baby here, I had one of those what the heck moments. But not being one to back down from a challenge, I bought one, I brought it home, I looked at it for a while, rolled up my sleeves and got started cooking. So this week's recipe is spaghetti squash. We're going to combine it with a package of frozen summer vegetables. We're going to make a white cream sauce that's going to feature Philadelphia cream cheese. We're going to toss it all together, we're going to top it off with some toasted pine nuts, and we're going to have a recipe that I really think you're going to enjoy. But where we need to start is, how are we going to cook this spaghetti squash? Now, most spaghetti squash are going to come, all of them I've seen, come with a label on it that gives you some cooking directions. I did a little research on the internet, and there's several ways you can cook one of these. You've got some decisions to make. You can cook it in the crock pot, you can boil it on top of the stove, you can bake it in the oven, and you can even cook it in the microwave. Another decision you have to make is, do you want to tackle it whole, or do you want to cut it up to start cooking it? Well, we've got some time restraints in this competition, so we're going to do a couple of cooking methods so that we make sure we stick to our 1 hour time frame. One thing I want to caution you about is, because we are going to be slicing through a product without peeling it, you always want to make sure that the outside of it is clean. I have washed this one. I have dried it off, so I know that I'm not going to cross-contaminate when I cut through it. And we're going to start with using the microwave and start with the squash whole. So a very important part of this step is, we're going to take our knife and we're going to put several deep cuts into the rind of the squash. That's going to keep us from having a microwave explosion, which would probably be one of the more exciting things you might see on some of these videos, but I really don't want to clean up the microwave. So we're going to cut several deep gouges. I'm going to continue with this around the squash. I'm going to put the squash in the microwave for 5 minutes, and when we get to that point, I'll come back. Okay, it's been 5 minutes in the microwave. Now be careful when you take it out of the microwave, because it is going to be hot. I've got a large knife here, and as you can see, it's very soft now that I can cut through, but it's not completely done by any means. You notice I got a hot pad here, and be careful of the steam. But I'm not a real strong person, and I promise you it's easy enough for me to cut through. Have a little bit of trouble down here with this stem end. But there we've got it. Now, a couple of more steps, and then we'll have this part of the recipe over with. You don't want to cook all of the pulp and the seeds that are in here, so we're going to scrape those out. Now these are just like pumpkin seeds. If you wanted to take time and clean them up and toast them, they're very good. But we're just going to put them over to the side now. So we're about, halfway there on the cooking process. If you were going to do this in the microwave, you would do it for 10 or 12 minutes. I have to admit though, I've tried it several ways, and I do like that little bit of oven bake to help, but we just don't have an hour to cook the whole thing. So, we're going to cheat just a little. We're going to do it both ways here. We're going to put some salt on this and some pepper. We're going to brush it with just a little bit of olive oil. And we're going to take this to an oven that's been preheated to 400 degrees. We are going to put it cut side down on our baking sheet. I'll fix the other half, and then I'll come back and show you what makes this turn into spaghetti. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're going to go back to our spaghetti squash in just a second, but I want to talk about the other vegetables that are featured in this recipe. This is a bag of just frozen summer vegetables. There's carrots, green beans, onions, zucchini squash, yellow squash. I have sauteed them in a skillet with a little bit of butter and a little bit of minced garlic. And I've cooked those down, and I'm just going to keep those warm on the stove, waiting to add the spaghetti squash to that. So you'll know that's back here cooking. Now, here we have our baked spaghetti squash. Now, this is the part that I like about putting it in the oven. You just don't get this little brown part, and I think that gives it just a little bit richer flavor. And you can start to see instantly, you'll know when this is done, and this is why they call it spaghetti squash. This starts breaking down and absolutely looking just like spaghetti noodles. If it doesn't come across, this is just butter tender. If it doesn't come across, pull apart from the sides that easily, then you're going to know that you need to put it back in the oven and bake it a little bit longer. So let me get a couple of more spoonfuls loose here. We'll add it to our other. We'll get it warming with the other vegetables. And then we'll talk about the sauce, because the sauce is what's going to take this up to the next level. Just going to add this into the other vegetables that have sauteed down. Toss that around to get it some of the butter and this garlic going. And you see, the spaghetti squash wound up not being that scary after all. And I think you'll find it's going to be a really pleasant dish. If you've not tried it before, I think you will enjoy it. Okay, so there's our veggies. I'm going to transfer that back, keep it warm. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the sauce. And because I knew that I wanted to go through the preparation of the spaghetti squash in case some people hadn't seen it before, I kindly went ahead and did the sauce ahead of time. The good thing about Philadelphia cream cheese, almost any recipe, it makes it so easy that we don't have to do a lot of work on the sauce. So this sauce is a combination of Philadelphia cream cheese, 8 ounces. I have melted that down. I've got a fairly heavy saucepan. We did this over medium heat. I added to that 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. You always need a stick of butter, so I've got a stick of butter that's melted down in there with the cream cheese and the heavy cream. Salt, pepper. I've put in 3/4 of a cup of Parmesan cheese. And then my signature ingredient, I always have to put a few red pepper flakes in. I just like a little heat in almost everything. So that's the sauce, that easy. You're going to melt it down. You want to stir it often. This makes a really nice white cream sauce. And that's it. So it's ready to go. So to finish off our dish, got our veggies here that are hot. I'm going to spoon some of this sauce over into it. We're going to toss that all around. I know it seems like a lot of steps, but I promise you it is worth the effort. And when you get into it, none of it is really that hard. So we're going to mix this up. Get it stirred up really well. And I'll be back in just a minute and we'll plate it. Okay, cleaned up a little so you can see how we're going to plate this. I took a nice red platter and I'm going to take the squash and vegetable mix that I've combined with our Philadelphia cream cheese white cream sauce. Put it out here. You can see that I think this is just a luscious looking dish. I think people will really enjoy it. I'm going to put a little bit of parsley on it to give it a little bit of color, just down through the middle. And then I think probably one of my favorite things about this recipe is I'm going to add some toasted pine nuts. I just put these in a small skillet on medium heat, stayed with them. Again, cooked them until you've heard me say it before. When you start to smell that nutty flavor, then it's time to take them off. And these just give a little bit of crunch and one more depth of flavor to the recipe. Okay, so we've got it plated. We've got it ready to go, ready to serve. So here's to those what the heck moments. I'm glad I tried the spaghetti squash. I think you and your family will enjoy it too. So here's this week's side dish recipe, pasta and cream sauce without the pasta. Enjoy.